Hi, my name is Everett. Tonight we are reading Balto of the Blue Moon by Mary Pope Osborne. We are reading the series is Magic Treehouse in a Merlin mission. Chapter 1, Gold Dust Stardust. Jack was reading on the front porch when Annie peeked her head out of the door. Bike ride later, she asked. Sure, said Jack. Let's go now before it gets too dark. Tell Mom and Dad. Annie slipped back into the house to tell their parents. Jack closed his book about whales and sharks and stood up and stretched. He was tired from swimming at the lake all afternoon, but he felt good. He loved summer. A bike ride in a warm evening air seemed like the perfect way to end the day. Good to go, said Annie, coming out of the house with their bike helmets. Jack and Annie ran down the porch steps and climbed on their bikes. They put on their helmets and pedaled out to the street. As they rode up their bike up the block, they waved to a neighbor mowing her lawn and a couple walking to poodles. We need a dog, Annie called back to Jack. What kind do you want? He asked. Any kind. I like all dogs, said Annie. Big or small, said Jack. Well, both. I want a little dog and a big dog, she said. Maybe an in-between dog, too. Jack laughed. Yeah, I'd like a dog, he said, but probably just one. Whoa, said Annie, putting on her brakes. Did you see that? What? Said Jack, stopping beside her. Above the woods, a bright flash of light, she said. You're kidding, he said. Not kidding, said Annie. I had a feeling even before we left the house, said Annie. Without another word, she bumped her bicycle over the sidewalk curb and headed into Frog Creek Woods. Jack followed his bike, bouncing over roots and twigs in the shadows beneath the trees, growing darker by the second. The woods were filled with the sounds of crickets. Am I brilliant or what? Cried Annie. She had stopped near the tallest oak. Brilliant, said Jack, laughing. The magic treehouse was perched high in the oak. Their friend Teddy was grinning at them from the window. Grinning at them from the window. It's time, he called. I was getting ready to summon a crow or a rabbit to go get you. Jack and Annie leaned their bikes against the tree and hurried up the rope ladder. Inside the treehouse, Teddy greeted them with hugs. We must hurry, he said. You are needed right away. Where? When? Why? Asked Annie. Where? A seaside town in vast territory. Below the Arctica, said Teddy. When? February 1925. And why? Because Merlin and Morgan believe you can save lives there. Whoa, said Jack. Sounds serious, said Annie. And cold, said Jack. It is quite serious, and it will be quite cold, said Teddy. First, you'll need this. He handed a small traveler guide. The territory of Alaska. Alaska? Oh boy, I've always wanted to visit Alaska, she said. The guide was published in 1925, said Teddy, So it will be different. So it will be a different Alaska than Alaska today, said Jack. Precisely, said Teddy. You will need this. He reached into his cloak and pulled out a small gold box. He handed it to Jack. What's this for? He said. He started to open the lid. No, don't open it. Oh, don't open it now, said Teddy. There's thimble full of enchanted gold dust inside. It is from Morgan. You can use it only once. Use it for what? Asked Jack. If you in your time of need, you can use it to acquire a great skill that you both will share, said Teddy. Cool, said Annie. Like the time we used the magic mist of Avalon, the skills of great rock climbers. The time we wished to be great magicians, said Jack, and great horse trainers, and great soccer players, said Annie. Yes, a bit like all those, said Teddy. If you remember, on those missions, the magic lasts for only an hour. This time, the magic will last for 12 hours. Wow, that's a lot, said Annie. Yes, said Jack, smiling. That's a really long time to be great at something. But there's another difference, said Teddy. Your skills on those past missions help you solve your own problems. On this adventure, your great skills will only be used to save the lives of others. So what kind of danger will others in Alaska be facing, said Jack. Merlin and Morgan did not tell me that part. Said Teddy. I imagine they will be quite sure you'd be able to figure it out when you arrive in the Alaska territory. We'll try, said Jack. One more thing, said Teddy. Merlin wants those you help on your mission to be celebrated as heroes. So he does not want the magic to part of their story. Okay, but how do we help anyone with knowing that we're helping, said Annie. Teddy reached into his cloak and brought out a second tiny box. This one was made of shimmering dark blue stone. He handed it to Annie. She cradled the box in her hands. It's so beautiful, she breathed. Do not open it until you need what's inside, said Teddy. It holds a bit of stardust, very rare and very precious. Oh, what's it for? Whispered Annie. If you toss the stardust into the air and make a wish to be forgotten, said Teddy, any memory or evidence of your visit will be instantly erased. Oh, said Jack. Okay, but the magical way, said Teddy. How? You must be on your way. Jack hadn't brought his backpack, so he put the gold box into his pocket of his jeans. Annie did the same with the dark gold box. Ready? They said together. Be safe, be well, said Teddy, and do not freeze to death. Gee, thanks, said Jack. Good advice. Annie pointed to the cover of the Traveler's Guide. I wish we could go to the Alaska Territory, she said. The wind started to blow. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 2. Quarantine. Cold face, Annie said, her teeth chattering. Yeah, said Jack. His breath billowed His breath billowed light into the sharp air. I feel like a fat brown bear, said Annie. Jack laughed. He and Annie were covered with fur from head to toe. They were fur pants, fur mittens, knee-height fur boots, and long fur jackets with fur hoods. Welcome to Alaska, said Jack. He pulled up his hood and tied it tightly under his chin. Annie did the same. Then they looked out the window together. The treehouse had landed in a few trees at the edge of a snowy field. Beyond the field was a coastal town. The winter sun was setting over an ice-covered sea. I wonder why we're needed to save lives here, said Jack. Do you think something scary is about to happen? Said Annie. Scary, said Jack. Like an earthquake or a volcano, said Annie. I don't know, said Jack. He picked up their Guide Alaska Territory. He pulled off one of his mittens and opened the book and read. About 12,000 years ago, people and their dogs crossed a land bridge over a Bering Sea from Russia to Alaska. When they reached Alaska, they became the first humans and dogs to live on North America. Cool, said Annie. I like the dog part. Jack kept reading. Until Russian explorers came to Alaska a few hundred years ago, a native Alaskan people lived there. For thousands of years, the native people survived by making use of a few resources of the rugged icebound land. Whoa, that must be tough people. No kidding, said Jack. He read more. In the 1800s, the United States purchased Alaska from Russia, and it became territory of USA. That's why this guide is called the Territory of Alaska, said Jack. It's from 1925. That's before Alaska became a state. Got it, said Annie. Okay, let's go find some lives to save. Wait, said Jack. Where's our magic? Check our pockets, said Annie. Annie pulled off her mittens, and they both reached into their big side pockets of their parkas. Got it, Jack said as he pulled out the gold box. Me too, said Annie. She held up the tiny stone box. Gold dust stardust, said Annie. One to save lives and one to make everyone forget we saved the lives. Yep, said Jack. Let's not lose them. They tucked the boxes back into their pockets and put their mittens on. As Annie started down the treehouse ladder, Jack crammed the Alaska guide into another one of his pockets. Then he clumsily followed Annie down the rope ladder in his bulky clothes. As they started across the snow-covered field, their boots squeaked in the snow. Jack's throat hurt from breathing in the dry, cold air. In the fading winter light, they crossed the bridge and walked along a frozen creek until they came to a boardwalk that ran along an icebound seashore. A sign said Front Street. The town was empty. There was no old cars or wagons, only piles of snow and ice. As Jack and Annie tramped through the snow. They passed stores and saloons and restaurants with crooked signs and broken windows. They all looked abandoned. There were only a few shops that looked as if they were closed but still might be in business. Num pharmacy, num laundry, num bakery. I guess we're in Num, said Annie. Good guess, said Jack. He took off one of his gloves, one of his mittens, pulled out their Alaska guide and found Num. He read. Around 1900, gold was discovered in Num. A remote Alaska town on the Bering Sea. More than 30,000 gold seekers rushed to the boom town. But within 10 years, Num's gold rush was over, and the town fell in hard times. Hard times, no kidding, said Annie. Num looks like a ghost town than a boom town. Let's keep going, said Jack. He pulled his mittens back on and put their guidebook into his pocket. As he and Annie kept walking down the snow-covered boardwalk, they passed the Dream movie theater and a Gold Gate hotel. Both signs said, temporarily closed. Finally, they came to a two-story wooden building that looked like someone's house. They could see lights and people inside. The black sign above the front door said, Maynard Columbus Hospital. At least there's a few people in town, said Annie. But why is the hospital the only place that seems open, said Jack. Yeah, weird, said Annie. They walked down the boardwalk until they came to a schoolhouse with the sign said, no school, quarantine. Oh, what? Uh-oh, said Annie. Quarantine, asked Annie. It means you're supposed to stay home so you won't spread a bad disease that's going around, said Jack. Maybe that's why everything is closed, said Annie. I wonder what the disease is. I don't know, said Jack. But if we go back to the hospital, we can ask someone there. In the twilight, Jack and Annie hurried up the boardwalk and to the entrance of the small hospital. When they stepped through the front door, they found a cold waiting room filled with people bundled in parkas and boots. Some seemed quite ill, slumped down in their chairs with their eyes closed. Others looked disappointed when they saw Jack and Annie, as if they were waiting for someone else. Only one person stepped forward to greet them. A boy about 14 or 15 years old stared at them with dark, questioning eyes. Who are you? He asked. Our names are Jack and Annie, said Annie. Are you sick with diphtheria? Said the boy. Annie shook her head. No, we just arrived from the United States. Excuse me a sec. She turned to Jack, away from the boy, and whispered to Jack. What's diphtheria exactly? It's a dangerous disease from the past. That must be what the quarantine is for. Jack whispered. We can't catch it. We have decans. Annie turned back to the boy. Do you have diphtheria? She asked gently. No, my sister and my mother do, he said. They are very sick and in beds upstairs. I'm waiting for the special medicine to arrive. Dr. Welsh says it will save their lives. Before the boy could say any more, Jack heard a man shout in a room down the hall. Hello, hello, can you hear me? The boy left the waiting room and hurried to an open door. Jack and Annie followed, and the three of them peeked into a doctor's office. Two people anxiously watching a man talk on an old-fashioned black telephone. Yes, this is Mayor Maynard, no, the man shouted into the receiver. Has the mushers arrived with the medicine package yet? As Mayor Maynard listened to the person on the other end of the line, Annie whispered to Jack, "A musher is a person who drives a sled pulled by a team of dogs." "I know," said Jack. "That's a cool job," whispered Annie. "No, listen to me," the mayor yelled into the phone. "If Gunner Kazan arrives at the roadhouse in Solomon, keep after there. Do not let him and the team move on. We can't risk losing the medicine. We're expecting a huge blizzard tonight, sweeping down from the Arctic." "A huge blizzard sweeping down from the Arctic? That's no good. That's no good news. That's not good news," thought Jack. We can't lose the medicine," said the mayor. 5 have already died." There are at least 20 more cases, possibly 50. The Board of Health believes it is better to delay than risk losing it altogether. Tell Kazan to wait until further word. No, you can't delay it," the boy said, barging into the office. Gunner Kazan must keep going. The medicine has to get here soon." "I don't have a choice, Okie," said the mayor, hanging up the phone. "It's what the Board of Health has ordered." The boy turned to a large, rosy-cheeked woman. "Nurse Morgan, please don't let them delay," he said. He sounded near tears. "It's going to be all right, Okie," Nurse Morgan said, patting him on the shoulder. "Please go back to the waiting room." "Don't worry," said the gray-haired woman in the white coat. "I promise you, everyone is working night and day to fight the epidemic. Dr. Welsh is my sister and mother need medicine now, or they will die," said Okie. Even in the blizzard, I know Gunner and Kazan can keep running." "You must leave us to do the work," said Dr. Welsh. He gently took the boy's arm and led him into the hall where Jack and Annie were waiting. "Everything will be fine. Try to get some rest, son. We don't want you to get sick too." When Dr. Welsh stepped into the room with Mayor Maynard, the nurse Morgan closed the door. Chapter 3, A Race Against Time. The Alaska boy looked at Jack and Annie. "They can't delay," he whispered frantically. It sounds like medicine is on the way," said Jack, trying to sound calm. It will arrive once the storm passes, but it needs to get here as soon as possible, said Oki. The doctor said, started Annie. The doctor cannot do anything until the medicine arrives, Oki said. But there is something I can do. He headed down the hall and hurried out the front door of the hospital into the dark. As he left, a gust of frigid air blew into the waiting room. That's it, Annie said to Jack. What? He said. Our mission. Help save lives of these sick people, said Annie. That's why Merlin sent us here. I think you're right, said Jack. So let's go talk to the doctor and nurse and find out what we can do. No, we should go, said Annie. Go where? Said Jack. Go save Oki's life, said Annie. But he's not one of the people in danger, said Jack. He will be. He's gonna do something crazy. I can feel it, said Annie. Come on. She took off down the hall and out the front door. Jack followed her into the icy cold. The moon was full and bright overhead. There, said Annie. Before Jack could stop her, she took off after the Alaskan boy. Oki, wait, she shouted. Jack hurried after Annie in the moonlight boardwalk. Jack hurried after Annie down the moonlit boardwalk. When they caught up to Oki, they were panting. Their breath billowed into the air. Stop, said Annie. We want to help you. How can you help me? Said the boy. He kept walking. Jack and Annie fell into step beside him. We came to Nome to help people fight the epidemic, said Annie. Only the medicine can help, said Oki. They might all die soon. If they do not get the medicine, why can't they bring the medicine here by boat? Asked Jack. The sea is frozen, said Oki. Just look. Well, what about a plane, said Annie. No plane can fly at 40 or 50 degrees below zero, said Oki. The pilot would freeze. Oh yeah, you're right, said Jack. Planes in 1925 must still have open cockpits, he thought. A car, asked Annie. No roads in winter, said Oki. The only way in Nome is by dog sled over the mail trail. So what do you plan to do? Asked Jack. I will take a team of dogs to find Gunner Chasm, said Oki. I will travel through the storm and bring the medicine back myself. But what about the blizzard? Asked Jack. The one the mayor talked about. The huge blizzard sweeping down from the Arctic. Any good musher with a good team of dogs can handle a blizzard, said Oki. Where's your team? Asked Annie. My Uncle Joe is a mail carrier, said Oki. He has a team that runs a port safety and so on and beyond all the time. So your Uncle Joe will go with you? Asked Annie. No, he has a broken leg from a sled accident, said Oki. But I'm not afraid to go alone. Jack and Annie hurried alongside Oki until they came to a shack on a spit of land near the frozen sea. In the bright moonlight, Jack could see that the shack was made of old driftwood and flattened tin cans. Smoke was rising out of a stovepipe on the roof. This is my uncle's house, said Oki, and those are his huskies. Next to the small house, there was a dog pen, surrounded by a wire fence. A dog sled was inside the pen. 8 huskies were sleeping in the snow. Their dark bodies were curled up together to keep warm. Oh, wow, breathed Annie. The dogs woke up at the sound of voices. They leaped to their feet and began yipping and whining. Hi, guys, said Annie. She hurried over to the fence to pet them. Careful, said Oki. They are very strong. They can jump up. But Annie had an instant connection with the dogs. They're so beautiful. She reached over, said Annie. She reached over the fence and rubbed their furry heads. Hey, what's your name? What's your name? What's your name? As Annie spoke, the dogs flattened their ears and their lips curved into smiles. They really like her, Oki said to Jack. He sounded impressed. Yeah, Annie has a special way with animals, said Jack, especially with dogs. Oki smiled for the first time. Do you and Annie want to come inside and get warm? He said. Sure, thanks, said Jack. Jack and Annie followed the Alaskan boy into the shack. Inside, a lantern lit a drafty room that smelled of fish and kerosene. Scratchy band music came from a wooden radio with big knobs. I must speak to my uncle. He is in bed, said Oki. He opened a door and slipped into another room. Jack and Annie looked around. Strips of dry, dark pink fish hung from a rack near the stove, which was made from an old metal barrel. Wooden barrels were set as chairs around the wooden table. Voices came from the other room. Jack recognized Oki's voice. But I can't go alone. No, you cannot. No, but I can go alone. No, you cannot, said a deep, raspy voice. Jack wondered if he and Annie should leave. It seemed wrong to overhear a family's argument. Let's go outside, he said to Annie. But we have to help fight the epidemic, she said. I know, said Jack. Maybe it would be better to go out back to the hospital and listen, Annie interrupted. She pointed to the radio. The music had stopped. A news bulletin had come on. A disparate drama is unfolding in Alaska. In the town of Nome, the broadcaster said. Nome, said Annie. She turned up the volume on the radio. All eyes are on this small ice-bound town in Northern Territory, where an outbreak of diphtheria has already claimed 5 lives. 20 of the best mushers and more than 160 dogs have been heroically running in a relay across the frozen tundra. They must travel a total of 600 miles to get the medicine from Nome, Alaska, the town of Nome. That's it. That's us, said Opie, hurrying back into the room. But now a blizzard threatens the curtail the efforts to save the resistance of Nome. The announcer said the storm is expected to sweep from down from the Arctic with 40 mile-per-hour winds and temperature as 30 degrees below zero. Oh man, said Jack. It is unclear whether the musher and their team of horrid dogs will be able to continue the announcer said. The medicine is now in hands of champion mushers, Gunner Kazan. Will he and his lead dog Balto be forced to stop life-saving journey? Balto, said Annie. Didn't we see a statue of him in Central Park in New York? Yeah, but I can't remember why he's so famous, said Jack. Me neither, said Annie. Will the blizzard keep the medicine from getting to the sick and dying and numb? The announcer said. It's a race against time, a race against death. Then the man's voice turned cheerful. And now we return to the music of King Oliver's Creole Jazz Band. The lively music came back on, and Okie turned the radio off. I am going to take the dogs, he said. He grabbed the burlap sack hanging near the door and started filling it with dried fish. I'll take this to feed them along with the way. I'll find Kazan. I know. Do not go, please. Jack Danny turned to a native Alaskan man hobbling into the room on a crutch. He had long jet black hair and wore a fur pullover with a hood. He had a weathered face and dark eyes. He barely glanced at Jack and Annie as he fixed his gaze on Okie. If Gunner Kazan and Balto cannot travel in this weather, neither can you, he said. I can at least try, Uncle Joe, said Okie. I have to. He kept throwing fish into the sack. Do not go out there alone, Okie, rasped his uncle. You are not a champion like Sepila or Kazan. And none of my dogs are as strong as Togo or Balto. It doesn't matter how great they are, how great Kazan is, said Okie. If he is sitting at the roadhouse in Solomon, if he waits for good reasons, said Okie's uncle. Any team can be lost in a blizzard. Let me go, please, Okie said, facing his uncle. No, shouted the man. Jack held his breath as he looked back at and as he looked back and forth at Okie and his uncle. Annie started to interrupt, but Jack shook his head. This isn't our business, he thought. I have run a trail many times, said Okie. I can do this with my eyes closed. But I have always been with you, his uncle said. You have never gone alone. I have to try, said Okie. Who will help you in a whiteout? His uncle asked. Who will help you if the ice breaks and moves out to sea? You will be gone forever. Maybe, but what about my mother? Okie cried. And my sister. They can't breathe. They can't swallow. They are on fire with fever. I promised them the medicine would arrive tonight, but if it doesn't come soon, they will be gone forever. I have to hurry. You heard the radio. It's a race against death. Okie slung the sack of dried fish over his shoulder and picked up a kerosene lantern from the table and hurried outside. Chapter 4, Champion Mushers. Stay with me, boy, Uncle Joe called after Okie. But the man's voice was lost in the excited barking of the huskies in the yard. Excuse me, sir, said Annie. What if we go with him? Annie, said Jack, shaking his head. The man turned and looked at Annie and Jack, as if noticing him them for the first time. "Who are you?" he asked. "Jack Nanny," said Annie. "We're friends of Oki's, and we're champion mushers." What? What? Jack thought. Oki's uncle scowled. "Champion mushers? How can that be? You are very young." "We are young," said Annie, "but we have great skills." "Right," said Jack. He quickly added in whisper. "Gold dust." "Oh, right." She quickly added in gold dust. "Oh, right," thought Jack. He nodded. We heard the lives were in danger here," said Annie, "so we came from the United States to help." "Help how?" said Oki's uncle. "Take a team of sled dogs and help get the medicine here," said Annie. Right, Jack." "Right," said Jack. Jack took a deep breath. He was a little nervous about losing their way and freezing to death, but he nodded again. We really want to help you," Annie said to Oki's uncle. The man stared at them for a moment, his face lined with grief. I don't know what to do," he said. "I lost my wife and my 2 children 7 years ago in a flu epidemic. None lost more than 1,000 people then. I fear it is about to happen again." Tears started down the man's craggy face. Jack was stunned. More than 1,000 people died? "That won't happen again," he bowed. We'll do everything we can. Thank you. But please leave my nephew here," said the man. "Do not let him go. Oki and his mother and his sister are all I have." "Don't worry, we won't let him go," said Jack. "Take my team. They are good dogs," said Oki's uncle. They have traveled the trail hundreds of times, delivering mail with me. "We promise we'll take good care of them," said Annie. "Thank you." The man bowed his head. "Thank you." Then he turned and hobbled with his crutch back into his room. Annie took a deep breath. "This is a good plan," she said to Jack. Right, he said. He hoped it was a good plan. He felt terrible for Oki and his uncle. "Gold dust," said Annie. Jack took off his mittens and reached into his pocket and pulled out the tiny gold box. He pried open the lid and stared at the glittering dust inside. "It's so beautiful," breathed Annie. Jack poured a bit of gold dust into his palm of his bare hand. "We wish to be champion dog mushers to save lives," he whispered. Then he tossed the dust into the air. The room filled with sparkling gold dust. The light gathered around Jack Nanny and quickly faded away. Jack felt a rush of energy. "Wow," said Annie, grinning. "I'm ready to hit the trail. Are you?" "Yep," said Jack. "Sure am," he laughed. Quit before Oki leaves with the dogs," said Annie. She started for the door. "Wait," said Jack. "The magic works for 12 hours. He looked at the clock on the wall. It was 8:30. "We have to be back at 8:30 tomorrow morning. No later." "Got it," said Annie. Then the 2 of them hurried out of the shack into the freezing night. The huskies were whining and leaping around the moonlit pen as Oki tried to buckle them into their harnesses. "Be still," he commanded. Be still." "Wait, Oki," said Jack, wrestling with a dog. Oki looked up at Jack. "Annie and I will look for Gunner Chasm," said Jack. "Your uncle wants us to take the team by ourselves." "By yourselves," said Oki. "Yes," said Annie. "You have to stay here. He can't risk losing you." "But how will you do this?" said Oki. You don't know the dogs or the trail." "We have great skills," said Jack, "and we trust the dogs. Your uncle told us they've traveled the trail hundreds of times." "Yes, but," says Oki. Good. Then our job is just to help them to do their job, said Annie. And your job, Oki, is to stay with your uncle and your sister and mother, said Jack. What if you are out in the storm? Your uncle will be sick with worry, said Annie. And your mother and sister won't want that. Oki stared out toward the frozen sea for a moment. He looked very troubled. I want to go with you, he said finally, but I will stay here for the sake of my uncle. He held the gate open so Jack and Annie could enter the dog pen. Come on, guys, Jack said to the huskies. Let's buckle up, he said. He and Annie pulled off their mittens. Even in the dark, they had no trouble hitching the dogs into their harness. I'll get the rigging, said Oki. He grabbed a bundle of lines from the basket of the sled and began untangling them. When Jack and Annie finished putting the harnesses on all the dogs, they hooked the team to the rigging. They quickly combed, attaching the lines to the harnesses and fastened necklines to collars. Work with us, guys, Annie said Work with us, guys, Annie said that as they tried to hitch the excited dogs to the tow line. A dog leaped. A lead dog jumped up and licked Jack's face. He laughed. He knew not a scold the dog would risk dampening the enthusiasm. The team would need their high spirits to run the tough race ahead. Soon all the huskies were strung to the tow line. Line up in pairs. The two dogs stood proudly in front, their tails high, their noses sniffing the air. The bells on the collars jingled. Two swing dogs behind the leads. Two team dogs stood behind them. Two mule dogs stood directly in front of the sled. You guys are the best, said Jack. The dogs whined and barked as if eager to go. You are both very good with the dogs, said Oki. Be firm, be fair, give kindness and respect, said Annie. What? That's how we always treat them. We promise. Thank you, said Oki. Jack and Annie pulled on their mittens. How far to Solomon? Jack asked. About 35 miles, said Oki. In about 20 miles, you will pass the roadhouse in port safety. Maybe 15 more, you will come to the roadhouse in Solomon. Where will we find Gunner? Kazan? Any idea how long the trip should take? Asked Annie. About 5 hours to get there, said Oki, and around 10 to come back, said Annie to Jack. No problem. Where does the trail start? Said Jack asked Oki. Just beyond the yard, said the boy, where you see tracks on the snow. Got it, said Jack. He turned to Annie. How about I drive first? You can sit in the basket, and then we'll switch. Okie dokie, said Annie. The dogs were still as she took her position in the basket of the sled. She sat on the wooden slats and held up onto the sides of the railings. Jack stepped onto the long runners that extended behind the basket. He gripped the two handles of the sled, bent his knees, and leaned forward. He felt as if he'd driven a dog sled all his life. "I'll get the snow hook," said Okie. He picked up the metal hook that attached the sled to that ensured the sled to the snow. He put on it in his basket in front of Annie. When he added the sack of dried fish, the dog food, he explained. "Cool," said Annie. "All set?" asked Jack. "All set," said Annie. "Okay, please tell your uncle we'll take good care of the team." "See you in the morning," said Jack. "Good luck," said Okie. "Line out," Jack called to the dogs, knowing all the right commands to use. Bells jingled. The lead dogs drew the team straight out in front of the pen. "Hike!" Jack shouted. The 8 huskies bounded forward and pulled the sled into the cold Alaska night. Chapter 5. Straight ahead. Moonlight cast a silver glow over the icebound sea. The huskies' heavy breathing made a cloud over the team as it glided along the coast. The only other sound in the darkness were the jingling bells of the lead dogs, the creaking of the sled bait basket, and the swish of the smooth wooden runners over the snow. As the dogs did their job, Jack magically knew how to do his. He knew how to pedal and the sled by pushing the ground with his right foot while keeping his left on the runner. He knew how to push it in the perfect rhythm to keep the team from running too fast, so he wouldn't pant and hurt. So they wouldn't pant and hurt their lungs in the freezing air. He knew how to balance his weight and bend his legs to absorb the shock of bumps on the trail. He knew how to keep all the lines tight and straight, so none of the dogs would get tangled in them. Jack knew all the mushers' commands too. When the team came to a drift, he shouted "G" to make the wheel dog curve to the right. When the team came to another drift, he shouted "Ha" to make the wheel dog curve to the left. When it was time to straight out the towel line again, Jack shouted "Straight ahead." Every time the dogs did what Jack commanded, he said, "Good dogs." But he hardly said more. He knew the fewer words, the better. The dogs spended on clear commands. Riding in the sled basket, Annie was silent too. Though several times Jack heard her gasp and say, "Wow." Wow is right, thought Jack. The wilderness Alaska night was beautiful. Maybe the forecast was wrong. Maybe the ride would be a thrilling race to save lives. Mile after mile, the huskies ran along the well-worn trail. When the dogs raced down the incline, Jack dragged his heel to keep them from going too fast. When they labored in the incline, he lightened their load by hopping off the runner running beside the sled, holding onto one of the handles to keep it steady. When the trail was flat again, he jumped back on the runners. Good driving, Annie called. Jack smiled. He loved being a champion musher. He loved knowing exactly what to do and when to do it. But he especially loved the easy connection he felt with the Huskies. Sometimes he even felt like a running dog himself as he pedaled in the rhythm to their pace. Lost in the thought, Jack failed to notice a change in the weather until he heard Annie call out, "The storm's starting!" Jack realized it had gotten colder and darker. Clouds covered the moon. The wind was blowing, and snow was falling. Snowflakes began to freeze in the lenses of Jack's glasses. Soon he couldn't see well enough to give commands to the dogs. Flying blindly down the trail, he tried to wipe his glasses with his fur mitten, but that only made it worse. As the Huskies headed into a sharp curve, Jack lost his balance and slipped from the runner and tumbled into the snow. The Huskies came to a halt and started barking. "What happened?" Annie shouted. "My glasses got messed up," said Jack, picking himself up. "I couldn't see anything." "Don't worry, that happens," said Annie. I guess I was too sure of myself," said Jack. "Even champion mushers have problems if they can't see," said Annie. "Let's switch places for a while." "I don't love driving." Sure, thanks," said Jack. He climbed into the basket and sat in the boards while Annie took her position on the runners. "Line out," Annie commanded the dogs. The team straightened out the line. "Good dogs," Annie shouted. "Hike straight ahead." The Huskies started running again. As they pulled the sled through the swirling snow, Jack took off his mittens and scraped his glasses with his bare fingers. When his skin started to burn with pain from the cold and wind, he quickly put the mitten back on. Annie kept a steady hand and a steady pace as she drove the 8 Huskies through the storm. Annie kept a steady hand on a steady pace as they drove the 8 Huskies through the snowstorm. The wind blew harder, but she shifted her weight to keep the swaying sledge from tipping over. She never let the tail line go slack and get tangled with the other lines. Every time she yelled "gee" or "ha," Jack leaned to the right or left to help the sled around curves. When the dogs started up a slope, Jack knew he should lighten their load. "I'll get off," he called to Annie. "Easy," Annie commanded the team. As the Huskies slowed down, Jack jumped out of the basket. "I'll run a while," he yelled. "Okay, but stay close," said Annie. Then she commanded the dogs to pick up speed. "Get up!" The team easily dashed to the incline and sped along the frozen shore. Jack decided to keep running. He felt good to move in the biting cold. He then suddenly heard a grinding of the sled runners. The team was running on ice instead of snow. Jack heard a loud crack sound, a cracking sound beneath his boots. His feet broke through the ice. His fur boots sank into the freezing puddle, almost a foot deep. The team sailed ahead of Jack, pulling Annie and the sled away from the ice. Left behind in the snow, snowy dark. Jack tried to climb out of the crack, but more ice broke off. His feet were getting soaked. "Annie!" he shouted. "Annie, stop!" "Gee!" Annie yelled. He could hear her turning the team around. He heard the bells of the leading dogs as they headed toward him. "Whoa!" Annie brought the huskies to a stop. "Stay back!" Jack shouted. There's thin ice here. Keep the dogs back. If the huskies got their feet wet, and their soft pads would quickly stick in the ice and freeze." Jack used all his strength to pull his boots out of the crack. He slipped and slid across the ice and snow as he made his way to the sled. "Come on, let's go!" he cried, climbing into the basket. "My feet are soaked." "Hike!" Annie yelled as the dogs took off through the bone-chilling cold. Jack felt his feet burning with pain. Soon they started to grow numb. As an expert musher, he knew that wet feet lost heat 25 times faster than dry feet. He had to get out of the cold immediately, or he would suffer severe frostbite. Before Jack could think of what to do, the huskies slowed down and yelped with excitement. "Oh, wow!" Annie said as the team came to a stop. Jack's glasses were covered with ice again. "What is it?" he shouted. "Unbelievable to see. What's there?" "We've come to a house," yelled Annie. "There's smoke from a chimney, and there's a light shining inside." "Just in time," said Jack. He climbed painfully out of the basket, and as Annie set the snow hook in the ground to hold the dogs. "Stay," she commanded. She helped Jack through the blowing snow and to the front door of the long cabin. Chapter 6. Port Safety. Annie banged on the wooden door. A moment later, it opened. "Gunner?" a man said, peering into the snowstorm. "No!" Annie shouted. "The ice cracked and my brother fell through. His feet are soaking wet. Can you help us? Hurry, get inside," said the man. With Annie's help, Jack limped into the warm, firelit cabin. As he took off his mittens and wiped snow and ice off his glasses, Sit near the stove," the man commanded. "I'll heat some water." Annie helped Jack out of his pocket, and he sat on a wooden chair near the crackling wood stove. "Take off his boots," said the man. Annie helped Jack pull off his fur boots and wool socks. Then set them near the stove. The man grabbed a kettle from the top of the wood stove. He poured water into a bucket. Jack looked at his wet feet. They were white and numb from the cold. He couldn't move his toes. "How are they?" said the man, lugging the bucket to Jack. Not bad," said Jack. But he was still trembling from the cold. "Not good," said the man, looking at Jack's feet. He set the bucket down in front of Jack. Soak them a while." "Thanks," said Jack. He put his feet into the warm water. He was overcome with pain. He started to pull them out, but the man stopped him. "Keep 'em there, kid," he said. "Okay," said Jack, gritting his teeth, listening to the howling wind and the snow pelting the cabin windows. He worried about the huskies. Can we bring our dogs inside? He asked. Sure, I'll unhitch them from their harnesses. But then he threw on the parka and hurried outside. I'll help him, Annie said to Jack. Don't move. She followed the man back into the storm. As Jack sat in the one-room cabin, he looked around for a clock, but he didn't see one. How long would it take for his boots to dry? He wondered. Would his feet be okay? With the dogs? Did the dogs have frostbite too? Jack was glad when the door opened. Everyone in, Annie shouted, hauling the sack of dried fish with her. She led the huskies inside. The man followed the team into the cabin and slammed the door against the storm. Go sit, he ordered the dogs. He pointed to a straw spread over the floor. The bedraggled huskies took slow steps across the room and settled down into the straw. Feel any better? The man asked Jack. Yes, said Jack. His teeth had stopped chattering, and the pain in his feet had lessened. I'm Jack, and she's my sister, said Annie. My sister Annie. I know, she told me, said the man. I'm Ed. He grabbed the kettle and poured a little more steaming water into the bucket. Ed's a musher too, said Annie. His team is in the shed behind the cabin. He's a mailman, like Oki's uncle. He recognized their dogs. Cool, said Jack. Yep, said Ed. Keep soaking your feet while your sister and I take care of the dogs. Jack kept his feet in the bucket as Ed poured drinking water into a large pot and gave it to the team. Then Ed and Annie knelt in the straw and massaged the dogs. Feet, one paw at a time. The huskies panted and looked as if they were smiling. Good dogs, and he kept saying. That's right, said Ed chiming in. Jack saw that the musher was missing teeth, and his beard was scraggly. Even so, his face had dignity and strength. Jack thought, now that he understood the job of professional musher, he admired Ed a lot. Ed lives here at the Port Safety Roadhouse, Annie said. That's a good name for it, huh? Jack nodded. As the wind howled outside, it did feel safe inside the cabin, but he worried that they couldn't stay. They only had 12 hours of magic. Do you know what time it is? He asked. Hold on. Ed pulled a pocket watch. Almost midnight, he said. So almost 8 and a half hours to find Gunner Chasm and return to Nome, thought Jack. Suddenly he remembered something. Ed, why'd you call us Gunner when you opened the door? Did you mean Gunner Chasm? Asked Annie. Were you expecting him? I did mean Gunner Chasm, said Ed. Earlier today, I was told to wait for him. If he gets tired on his journey, I'm supposed to take his package to the Num. But then I got word from Solomon that Gunnar would be staying there a while. When I heard a knocking, I thought he'd decided to push on. No, said Annie. The mayor of Num told him to wait until the storm ends. At least that's what someone told us. Good thing, said Ed. Only a crazy fool would drive in a storm like this. So why the heck are you two out there? Well, we just went out for a short ride said Annie, to exercise. Oki's uncle's dog, said Jack. While Oki's at the hospital, right, said Annie. And then we got lost. You're lucky I found this place before you froze to death, said Ed. Yeah, really lucky, said Jack. How are your feet? Ed asked him. Jack pulled his feet out of the water. His skin was pink, and the terrible pain was gone. He wiggled his toes. I think they're going to be okay. Good news, said Ed. He grabbed a towel and a pair of socks from an old canvas bag. He tossed them to Jack. These socks will be too big, but better than wet ones. Thanks, said Jack, drying his feet and then pulling on the warm woolly socks. You just dodged a case of frostbite, mister, said Ed. I bet you kids will think twice before taking a joyride in a blizzard again. Well, actually, I think we should be heading home soon, said Jack. But don't worry, it's not far. What are you two crazy in this weather, said Ed. Well, we're champion mushers, said Annie in a small voice. Oh yeah, Ed squinted at her. What races have you won? Well, they weren't in Alaska, said Annie. We're from Frog Creek Winter Relay, and I've never heard, said Ed. Doesn't matter. I don't care who you are. You're not going back out in the storm. Your team needs to rest, if nothing else. And eat, right, fellas? I grabbed a burlap sack and pulled out flat pieces of dried pink fish, and the huskies wiggled and whined as Ed started feeding them. Annie looked at Jack. Maybe we can stay a little bit longer, she said under her breath. Jack nodded. Okay, but we have to keep our eye on the time. We will, said Annie. The dogs gobbled up every piece of fish and drank from bowls of water. Then the huskies sat down and put back their heads and began to howl. The wind howled outside as all dogs howled inside. Jack knew the howling meant the dogs were satisfied. He, Annie, and Ed laughed until the howling stopped and abruptly it began as had begun. The dogs then began nodding happily off to sleep. One by one, some lay on their sides while others curled up in tight balls. As balls and covered their noses with their bushy tails. All right, now let's get you some food and drink, said Ed. Can you please tell us what time it is again, asked Jack. Ed glanced at the watch. 1:15, he said. Jack didn't want to, Jack didn't know what to do. He was hungry, but now they only had 7 hours left to find Gunner and get back to Num. I'll make some soup, said Ed. He seemed too determined to keep them from going back out into the blizzard. He grabbed a can of tomato soup from a shelf and began opening it with a can opener. What about our mission? Jack wondered. What could he make? Ed understood that Ed understand that they had to leave. Excuse me, he said. I'm afraid you can wash your hands over there. Ed interrupted. He pointed toward a tin basin in a wash tub. It's okay, Annie whispered to Jack. We have time. We have time. She put her red chapped hands into the cool water. She washed them with soap. Jack reluctantly did the same and nodded toward the table. Sit, he said, as if commanding a command to two huskies. Jack and Annie smiled. They dried their hands and sat on 2 wooden barrels at the table. Ed dropped a box of soda crackers between them and gave them each a glass of milk. While the blizzard raged outside, he filled 2 bowls with steamy soup from a pot on the stove, and put them in front of Jack and Annie. Then he sat on an old armchair near the table. Thanks, said Annie. Yeah, thanks, said Jack, sighing. Breathing in the delicious smell of tomato soup, his worries momentarily faded. Chapter 7. Jingle bells. Delicious, said Annie. She and Jack slurped down the hot soup as they chewed the salty soda crackers. They watched the dogs breathe peacefully in their sleep. Do most Alaskans have sled dogs? Asked Annie. Many do, said Ed, resting in his armchair near the fire. But the day is coming when dogs won't be used much anymore, except for racing. I can see it happening already. Small planes will be better and better and take over the long trips. Cars will improve. The roads too. Soon enough, we'll have vehicles that do through deep snow in no time. That's good in a way, said Jack. It'll help medicine travel faster. But it's sad too, said Annie. I'm with you, Missy, said Ed, looking at the sleeping dogs. Breaks my heart if an old timer like me. People have used sled dogs for hundreds of years in the territory. I myself have known many brave dogs during my lifetime. Do you know Balto, said Jack. Gunner Kazan's dog? We've heard of him. Sure do, said Ed. Balto is the best leading dog in Alaska, along with Togo. Leonhard Sebela's dog. Both Togo and Balto have stopped here on runs with Cephala and Kazan. What's Balto like? Asked Danny. That dog loves to run a trail, said Ed. Loves it more than any dog I ever saw. Great strength and lots of courage. Big shaggy black dog. Beautiful at watch because of his spirit. Annie smiled. I'd like to meet him. Annie said, especially with dogs. Annie has a special way with dogs, said Jack. With all animals, really, said Annie. Ed smiled at her. Alaskans are really respectful to animals, too, he said. We won't have survived a minute without them. People here have learned to use all their gifts. These gifts this frozen world can give. Like what? Asked Jack. Well, the socks I gave you are made of sheep wool, said Ed. The parkas that are drying over there are made of squirrel fur and fox fur hats. I wear moose skin and caribou skin and rabbit fur. The medicine headed for numb is wrapped with bear hide. The medicine itself is made from horse serum. What serum? said Jack. A blood of a horse, said Ed. It has antinoxins and kill diphtheria. Wow, said Annie. So Alaskans get gifts from. She held up one finger after another. Sheep, squirrels, seals, reindeer, fox, moose, caribou, rabbits, bears, horses, and dogs, said Jack, finishing his milk. And dogs, of course, said Andy. And fish and whales and birds of the air, all creatures, said Ed. So everything's connected, said Annie. That's right, said Ed, nodding. Eventually, it all becomes one thing. The people, the land, the animals, the sea, and the air. It becomes Alaska. Cool, said Jack. The three of them stared for a long moment. Stared for a long moment at the dogs. Some of the huskies waddled Some of the huskies paddled the air with their paws, as if they were dreaming about running over the trail. Ed yawned as his eyes started to close. A moment later, his head drooped forward and he was snoring. Jack quietly put down his spoon. He tiptoed to the stove and grabbed his fur boots. They were dry, but his socks were still damp. So he pulled the boots over the big pair of socks Ed had given him. It's time to head to Solomon, he whispered to Annie. We have to finish what we came here to do. Annie nodded. Ed snored loudly as Jack and Annie silently pulled on their fur parkas. They grabbed their mittens and slipped from over to the dogs and gently woke them. The dogs jumped to their feet. Even through their whining and whines and yips, Ed kept snoring. "Thanks, Ed," Jack whispered to the sleeping man. "Yeah, thanks for being so nice to us and the dogs," whispered Annie. Then very quietly she led the team out of the log cabin. Jack followed, closing the door behind them. Outside, the wind and snow were blowing wildly. Jack and Annie pulled their mittens long enough to harness the team. They nimbly hooked the dogs and tugged lines, neck lines, and the towel lines. "Ready?" Jack shouted above the wind. "I hope Ed doesn't worry about us when he wakes up," Annie shouted back. "Oh man, I just thought of something," said Jack. "What?" "Stardust," said Jack. "For Ed." "Yes," said Annie, leaving the dogs waiting for a moment. She and Jack hurried back to the cabins, slipped inside and closed the door. Ed was still snoring as Annie reached into her pocket and took out the dark blue box. When she opened the lid, the silver dust shimmered with starlight. She emptied a small amount into her palm and tossed the glittering dust into the air, whispering, "We wish to be forgotten." The stardust flashed through the room, then quickly evaporated. To Jack's amazement, the bowls, spoon, and cups were clean and stacked neatly on the counter. Jack's damp wet socks had vanished, and the unpenned soup can was all back on the shelf. The hay was neatly spread across the floor. No sign we were here," said Annie. "Except Ed will be missing a pair of his socks," whispered Jack. Annie laughed. "Full speed ahead," she whispered. Then she and Jack slipped back outside into the storm. They ran through the blowing snow to the waiting team. "I'm happy to drive for a while," Jack shouted in the wind. Is that okay with you?" "Sure, I'll take it over whenever you want," said Annie. She picked up the snow hook and put it into the basket, then climbed in herself. Jack stood on the sled runners, crouching slightly and gripping the handles. "Okay, team, ready to find Gunner and save lives?" he said. The huskies barked as if saying, "Yes, yes, yes." Ready, willing, and eager," said Annie. "Line out," Jack commanded. The team pulled the towel line straight and out, making a taut. "Hike," Jack yelled. "No, hike," said Jack. The 8 huskies surged forward, bells jingling. The team raced away from the roadhouse of Port Safety, pulling the sleds through the blizzard. As the basket bounced, the bumping and bumped over uneven ridges on the trail. Annie almost fell out, but she didn't complain. Jack could hear her laugh, as if she were enjoying the ride. The wind from the frozen sea was bitterly cold. As the wind howled and the snow swirled through the dark, the dogs kept their heads down and ran on and on. Jack used his skills to move the team around banks and drifts, through gale force winds, and he drove the sled over rough, frozen paths at the edge of the sea, like sand in a sandstorm. Ice crystals beat against his face, stinging his skin. His mittens were nearly frozen to the wooden handles, but he felt perfectly in his thick fur clothing. He was grateful to all the creatures that had given the gifts to help Alaskans survive in the frozen world. As more and more snow stuck to his lenses of his glasses and turned to ice, Jack knew he shouldn't keep driving. We need to switch now, he called to Annie. Before he could give a command to stop the dogs, a fierce gust of wind slammed against the sled, sending it into the bank. Jack fell over and off the runners and was swallowed up in the pile of snow. Jack, cried Annie. Where are you? Here, Jack said, floundering as he tried to get up. His heavy fur clothes made it hard for him to stand, but Annie grabbed his hand and helped him to his feet. Together they pulled the sled out from the snowbank and untangled the rigging. I can drive for a while, said Annie. Okay, said Jack. He sat in the basket, and Annie stood on the runners. Line out, she shouted. The dogs straightened their lines. Before she could command to take off, she yelled, Jack, listen. Jack listened. He heard a shrieking of the wind and the whooshing of snow. Listen to what? He said. Bells, I hear bells, Annie shouted. Up ahead. Now Jack could hear the bells too, jingling bells. Yes, he said, another team must be coming up toward us. Could it be Gunner? Said Annie. Gunner Kazan and Balto, shouted Annie. Maybe, Jack yelled. The jingling bells grew closer and closer. Yay, they're coming this way, for sure, shouted Annie. But the sound of bells stopped suddenly. Then through the storm came the frantic, high-pitched barking of dogs. Chapter 8. Catastrophe. Uncle Joe's team of huskies answered with howling and yelping. Something's wrong, cried Annie. Maybe they had an accident, said Jack. Let's check it out, said Annie. Hike, yelled Annie. Straight ahead. The team took off. Annie drove the huskies through the dark toward the frantic barking. Soon they came to another team of dogs, floundering in the snowdrift. A sled had crashed and flipped over. The driver was trying to free his dogs. Whoa, said Annie. No, whoa, Annie ordered. Stay. Jack planted the snow hook firmly in the ground and secure the team. Then he and Annie bowed their heads against the wind and struggled through the gale. Gunner, shouted Jack. Gunner Kazan. The driver waved and shouted, Yes. Oh, wow. We were sent to find you, cried Annie. Are you okay? Yes, just hit a bump back there, said the famous dog musher. The sled went flying and crashed on its side Jack and Annie began helping Gunner, then grabbed each dog by its harness end, and one by one, dogs were all on their feet again. Jack had counted 13 huskies. Jack and Annie helped Gunner turn the sled upright, setting it back on its runners. Then together, all three stomped on the snow with their boots, packing it down till the dogs could pull the sled out. Line out, Gunner commanded his team. Soon the dogs were lined up in pairs in front of the sled. There was with a jingling dog in the lead. "Wait, is that Balto?" shouted Annie. "Yes," said Gunner. Annie hurried to the front of the line. "Hi, Balto." Balto barked a greeting to lead and leapt up and looked Annie's face. The bells on his collar jingled wildly. Annie laughed and hugged him. "I've wanted to meet you for a long time," she shouted. "Did you have the medicine for numb jacks?" asked Gunner. Yes, the musher said. He leaned over the sled. "It's right here." "Oh, no. No what?" said Jack. "What's wrong?" "The package is missing," said Gunner yelled. "Missing?" said Jack. Where is it?" cried Gunner. Where is it? Where is it?" Jack echoed. It was tied to the sled," shouted Gunner. This is a catastrophe." In the biting wind, the musher fell to his knees and frantically dug through the snow, looking for the medicine package. "What's wrong?" Annie called from the front of the line of dogs. Jack ran to her. He lost the medicine. It fell off the sled," he said. "We have to help him find it." Wait, said Annie. "I'll bet Balto can find it." She crouched beside the lead dog and unhooked him, his tug line and neck line. "No, don't unhook him," said Jack. "We can't lose Balto too." "We won't lose him," said Annie. We can help him. She grabbed the lead dog's head between her mittens and put her face close to his, saying words Jack couldn't hear. Then she released Balto. "Find the medicine! Find it now!" Annie yelled. While Gunner crawled around in the snow looking for the package, Balto took off in the direction of his team had came from. With his nose to the ground, the husky trotted back down the trail. "Let's follow him," Jack cried Annie. Leaving Gunner and the rest of the dogs behind, she and Jack hurried after Balto. They trudged through the snowstorm, and after the eager dog followed. They trudged through the snowstorm after the eager dog, following the jingling of his collar bells. When Annie and Jack reached Balto, he was whining and digging through the snow. "I think he found it," Annie shouted. Jack felt around in the wind-swept snow until he touched something soft and solid. He pulled a heavy fur wrapped bag in the snow and struggled to stand up with it. Great job, Balto. You found it, Annie shouted. Gunner, Jack yelled. We found the package, but his voice didn't carry through the storm. Let's take it to him, he said to Annie. Balto started back the way they came, his collar bells jingling. Carrying the package of life-saving medicine, Jack followed Balto and Annie. When they reached Gunner, the Gunner's team, Annie quickly hooked Balto in front of the line. Then she and Jack hurried to Gunner. The musher was still on his knees, not far from the sled, loudly shoveling through the snow with his hands. Gunner, it's okay, shouted Jack. We have the package. It was back there. It must have fallen out when you hit the bump. Balto found it, said Annie. Gunner gave the happy shout and staggered to his feet. Jack handed over the fur-wrapped package, and Gunner tied it tightly to the sled. You go ahead, we'll follow you, Jack shouted. We can help you if you need us again, said Annie. Thank you, shouted Gunner Cabin. I won't forget you. Thank you, Annie yelled. Goodbye. Annie yelled goodbye to Balto. Then she and Jack hurried back through the swirling snow to their own sled. The Huskies greeted them noisily. Ready, team? Jack yelled, pulling up the snow. Good. You're going to follow Balto. Can I drive? Annie shouted. Sure. We can switch places at Port Safety if we want. As he climbed into the basket, Jack thought about Port Safety Roadhouse. He wondered if Gunner planned to stop there. It would be weird to meet Ed all over again, as if for the first time. And he stood on the runners and waited. Soon jingling bells could be heard. Moments later, Gunner's team dashed by with Balto in the lead. All 13 Huskies pulled the musher and his sled over the snow. As the jingling bells faded into the night, Annie shouted, "Hike!" The 8 Huskies bolted forward and got back on the trail, dashing after Balto's team. As Jack bumped around in the basket, he held on to his on the sides and closed his eyes against the fury of the storm. It wasn't long before he heard Annie shout, Port Safety Roadhouse up ahead. Jack opened his eyes and saw the log cabin. Jack, look, Gunner. Jack, look. Gunner kept going. Jack, look. Gunner kept going, yelled Annie. He didn't stop at the roadhouse. Keep following them, said Jack. Gee, yelled Annie, and swung her dogs away from the roadhouse. Jack and Annie's Huskies kept following the jingling bells of Balto as he and his team led the way north of Nome, racing along the coast of the Bering Sea. Jack and Annie's team seemed even more livelier and stronger than before, it was if Balto was leading their team as well as his own. Guided by Balto's spirit, the 21 dogs flew over the flat shoreline. As they ran, the weather improved. The snow stopped falling, and hours the blizzard had stopped completely. The sky had begun to clear. As in the early gray dawn, Jack saw the church steeple in the distance. He saw light flickering in the window of houses. "We're back! We made it to Nome," he cried. "Hooray!" said Annie. The sun was rising as they followed Balto's team into the town. We should take these guys back to Okie and his uncle," said Annie. You're right," said Jack. Gunner's good now. The medicine arrived." "Ha!" commanded Annie, and the dogs veered left and headed for the spit of land near the frozen sea. In the early light, the huskies stopped at Uncle Joe's shack. As the dogs whined and yelped, Okie flew out the door. His uncle followed, hobbling in his crutch. Though exhausted, the dogs had enough energy to jump up and down and barked excitedly as their two friends greeted them with great joy. Chapter 9. Balto of the Blue Dawn. Jack climbed out of the sled as Annie stepped off the runner. A thin layer of ice covered their faces and clothes, but they were both laughing as they stamped their feet and swung their arms. You made it back," Okie shouted. "What time is it?" asked Jack. "Almost 6 o'clock," said Okie. Jack smiled at Annie. With time to spare, he said, Thank God you are safe," said Uncle Joe. Did you find Gunner and Cousin?" Okie asked. "We did," said Annie. "On the trail below Port Safety." His sled had overturned. The medicine was lost, but Balto helped us find it. Gunner and his team arrived in Nome just ahead of us," said Jack. They're delivering the medicine to the hospital." Uncle Joe closed his eyes and sighed with relief. Okie couldn't stop grinning. He pumped Jack and Annie's mittens, hands, and Annie's too. Thank you. You are champions." Don't thank us," said Jack. "Thank your dogs. They're the real champions." Okie opened the gate to the dog pen. The team of huskies walked in panting wearily. Jack and Annie held Okie and Uncle Joe. Help Okie and Uncle Joe unhitched the dogs from their neck lines and tug lines and pulled off their harnesses. Then they massaged the dogs' backs and legs. What? Backs and legs. Well, Okie gave the dogs water, and Jack and Annie fed them dried fish. The huskies wolfed down their meal and then howled with gratitude as the sun rose over them. The eight brave dogs curled their bodies into the bright snow, curved their noses with their tails and closed their eyes. Jack, take a long rest, Team, said Jack. You deserve it, said Annie. Let's go to the hospital, said Uncle Joe. Yes, said Okie. We will talk with you, said we will walk with you, said Annie. Uncle Joe hobbled on his crutch, and as the four of them headed to town, the reflection of the brilliant blue of early morning sky, the snow itself looked blue. But the time they arrived at the hospital, a small crowd had gathered. Jack saw Mayor Maynard and Gunner Chasm surrounded by a group of reporters with cameras and notebooks. Gunner's huskies were off to the side. Children were petting them, and photographers were taking pictures. As the dogs smiled and panted, Jack and Annie, Jack could see their clouds of white breath. The newspapers are here. The newspapers are here, said Opie. The whole world will soon hear the story. we tell everyone what you have done, Jack and Annie. Then we'll honor you too. Okie and his uncle walked faster. Whoa, wait, Jack said to Annie. Stardust. Right, said Annie. Right. Annie reached into her pocket and pulled out the dark blue box. Are you coming? Okie called back to them. Yes, we'll be right there, Jack shouted. As Okie and his uncle headed toward the crowd, Annie lifted the lid of the tiny box. Silver powder shimmered inside. We wish to be forgotten by everyone who saw us on our mission, Annie said. Then she tossed the contents of the box into the air. Like tiny grains of windswept snow, the stardust flashed brilliant over the street. Before anyone could even look at them, the silver stardust evaporated, and the sharp, crisp air was clear again. Annie put the tiny box back into her pocket. Done, she said. Then she and Jack headed toward the gathering in front of the hospital. When they drew close to the crowd, Okie caught sight of them. But then he looked away, as if he'd never seen them before. His uncle did the same. Gunner Chasm also glanced in the direction, but his eyes passed over them without interest. I guess it worked, said Annie. Yeah, no one remembers us at all, said Annie. She sounded sad. Jack felt sad too. Mayor Maynard, tell us about the heroes of the great serum race, a reporter said. Mayor Maynard proudly stepped forward. For 5 and a half days, 20 mushers and more than 160 dogs hauled the life-saving medicine to Nome and proclaimed how many miles that was, that the reporter asked as he scribbled on a pad. Nearly 700 miles, said the mayor, and two of our citizens from Nome heroically took part in the relay. Leonhard Sepilla and Gunner Chasm, both mushers and had strong lead dogs. Leonard and his dog Togo ran across frozen Norton Sound in Golovin, and Gunner and his dog Balto brought the medicine back from Bluff and to Num. Another reporter yelled to Gunner Kazan, "Congratulations, Mr. Kazan. To what do you own the success of your part of the relay?" "I owe everything to my lead dog, Balto," said Gunner. The famous musher pointed to the husky sitting patiently nearby. He's a working dog, like all my other dogs, all my others, but he's the best." In the daylight, Jack got a good look at Balto. The huskies had shaggy black fur, except for a white paws and a white chest and a bit of white around his mouth. He had gentle brown eyes. "You told me, the mayor, that you lost the medicine in an accident at one point," said the reporter. Gunner nodded. "Yes, that's right. Yes, I did." "And how'd you find it?" asked the reporter. "Well, the musher shook his head. "I'm not sure. After the accident, I discovered it missing somehow. The package had come untied from the sled, and I panicked, and, well, I dug around in the snow, and I don't know, I guess I just found it." "It seems like a miracle," said the reporter. He turned back to the mayor. What a disaster it would have been if the medicine were lost in the trail. "Indeed," said the mayor. The hard work from all the mushers and dogs would have been for nothing, and many more people would have lost their lives to diphtheria. But I have now delivered the package into the hands of Dr. Welsh and Nurse Morgan. How will give the life-saving serum to the package patients?" Everyone clapped and cheered. Okie and his uncle cheered the loudest. Jack and Annie looked at each other. "Time to go," said Jack. "Okie dokie," said Annie. The reporter was asking more questions. Jack and Annie pulled away from the crowd, heading back toward the treehouse. They hadn't gone far down the boardwalk when they heard a barking. They both turned. "Balto," said Annie. The beautiful black husky was bounding after them. "Balto," said Annie. She knelt in the blue dawn and reached out her arms. Balto nearly knocked her over as he licked her face. His dark eyes were twinkling. He seemed to be smiling. He remembers us, Jack," said Annie. "Balto remembers us?" "Yep," said Jack. But that's okay. He won't tell anyone." Annie laughed. "Balto, Gunner Kazan shouted. "Come!" The crowd barely glanced at Jack and Annie. "Balto, Balto," called Gunner. "Go on, Balto," said Annie. You're their hero. They need you." Balto gave her one more lick, then he left them and trotted back toward the cheering crowd. His head and tail were held high, his fur fraggled with sunlight. Jack and Annie turned away and headed down the boardwalk. Soon they left Front Street and walked along the creek. They crossed the bridge and the frosty field to the bare tree with the tree house. And the thick fur boots and mittens, Jack clumsily climbed the rope ladder. Annie followed him. When they looked out the window, they were nearly blinded by dazzling reflection of the sun on the snow and ice covering the sea. Mission accomplished, said Annie. I guess we helped save lives, said Jack. Yep, said Annie. Now let's go home and get warm. She picked up the Pennsylvania book and pointed to the picture of Frog Creek. I wish we could go there, she said. The wind started to blow. The treehouse started to spin faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 10, A Gift. Jack felt warm air, wonderfully warm. He was wearing his shorts and t-shirt again. No time at all had passed in Frog Creek. It was still twilight on a summer night. Nice, said Annie. Really nice, said Jack. He reached into his pocket and took out the tiny box, empty of gold dust now. He placed it on the floor of the treehouse next to the guidebook to the territory of Alaska. And he reached into her pocket and pulled out the shimmering blue box. Empty stardust she put beside the gold box on the floor. That was a good trip, said Annie. Yeah, a little cold, and a little stressful, said Jack. But all in all, very good. The best part, of course, was the dog, said Annie. Totally, said Jack. Come on. Let's go. Let's go home. He started down the rope ladder. Huskies are great dogs, said Annie, following him. Yep, said Jack. Strong and brave and really smart, too. Like St. Bernards. Remember Barry in Switzerland, said Annie, as she stepped off the ladder. Of course, said Jack. He smiled and shook his head, remembering the giant, crazy puppy high in the mountains, and remembering when Morgan and turned Teddy into a terrier. Jack and Annie, of course, said Jack. We'd better walk our bikes now. It's getting dark fast. Okay, said Annie. She and Jack pushed their bicycles over the leaves and grass. The woods were filled with the sound of summer bullfrogs. The bullfrogs croaked from the hidden creek. Crickets chirped in the grass. An owl hooted from a tree branch. Another sound. Yip, what was that? Said Annie. I don't know, said Jack. Yep, it sounds like a dog, said Annie. No way, said Jack. That's too much for a dog. Coincidence. Yep. Coincidence or not, there's a dog around here. Somewhere, said Annie. She parked her bike against the tree. Seriously, said Jack. Shh, said Annie. The leaves rustled. Yep. They barked in the dark. Annie got down on her hands and knees. Where are you? She whispered. Yep. I've got you, said Annie, and she lifted a wiggling little black and white puppy out of the greenery. I don't believe this, said Jack. Look, said Annie. She stood up and carried the puppy over to Jack. Here, pet him. Jack reached out, and the next thing he knew, his hand was wet from puppy licks. Oh man, he laughed. Can you push my bike? Annie asked. I'll carry him to the street so we can get a good look at him. Annie took off the puppy. Jack tried to steer two bikes through the woods. Annie's bike twisted and fell over, but Jack finally got a good grip on the wheels and they both bikes out to the sidewalk. Annie was standing under a street lamp, cradling the puppy in her arms. Let me see him, said Jack. He parked the bikes and looked at the puppy under the light. The tiny puppy had beautiful brown eyes and curly black and white fur, and soft and shiny. Its fur was soft and shiny. Oh, said Jack, stroking the fur, furry little head. He's really cute. Let's get him home, said Annie. I'm sure he's hungry and thirsty. Jack grabbed his bike again and started down the sidewalk with Annie. And the puppy Jack grabbed their bikes again and started down the sidewalk with Annie and the puppy. What breed do you think he is? He said. I think a mix, said Annie. A mix of what? I wonder, said Jack. Lots of dogs, all sizes, big, small, and in between. St. Bernard Terrier Husky, said Annie. He's a mix of all dogs we've ever loved. Jack nodded. Cool, he said. I hope Mom and Dad will let us keep him. They will, said Annie. They said we could get a dog whenever we found the right one, and this is definitely the right one. Yeah, but what if he's lost, said Jack. Don't worry, we'll ask around and put up signs, said Annie. But I have a feeling he's not lost. I think he was actually in the wood waiting for us. I think it's a gift. A gift from who, said Jack. Maybe from Merlin and Morgan, said Annie. A gift to thank us. Jack smiled. He liked that idea. So what do you think we should name him? He said. And he thought for a moment. What about Okie? Okie, said Jack, like the boy we just met. Yeah, I like that name, said Annie. Plus, it'll remind us of the Huskies and Balto. Yeah, said Jack. But hey, just promise me if he asks to go outside or eat or play with a toy, you won't say okie dokie okie. Annie laughed. I promise, she said. Then they climbed the steps to the front porch. Then Annie stopped at the screen door. Ready to meet our parents? She asked the puppy. Yep. Okie dokie okie, said Annie. Let's go inside.